Hello, everybody, and welcome to this session on ServiceVote 2022, focused on connecting service and voting to increase youth civic participation. My name is Michael Minks with Youth Service America, and I'll be joined by a couple of my colleagues from partner organizations later in the presentation, Priestley Johnson from When We All Vote and Penny Wren from Guides.vote, and they'll share some of the resources available through our work with them, in addition to the resources that I'll share with you from Youth Service America. YSA has run our ServiceVote campaign every election cycle since 2000, when we first created the program, after seeing the low voter rates of the 1990s and wanted to address that by helping volunteers connect the work that they were doing through volunteering and service activities and the issues that they clearly cared about in being involved in those activities to the policy work and to the importance of being focused on what elected officials and candidates for those offices were saying about those same issues, and really thinking that that could be a key motivating factor to help increase voter turnout, that you weren't voting just because it was a good thing to do, but because you could really make a difference on the issues that you were already helping to address in your community. So as I mentioned, we've run this program every election cycle since 2000. And today is really part of YSA's larger work to make working together for the common good, the common expectation and common experience of every young person. And our current goal is to increase youth participation to at least 50% by America 250, the nation's semi-quincentennial on July 4th of 2026. So coming up in just under 4 years from now. And the goal is to increase youth participation to 50% in volunteering and service activities, voting and civic engagement activities, and joining and leadership development activities. And so the ServiceVote work really obviously drives towards that 50% voting and civic engagement goal. And we're really looking at the rate among first-time eligible voters, those 18 and 19-year-olds, and really looking at are those rates happening in every single election, not just the big presidential years. So even though we've seen some nice spikes in youth voter turnout the last couple of elections, sustaining that and making sure that those numbers are also increased among the first-time eligible voters is incredibly important. And our impact is really looking at the impact on young people themselves, on communities through the issues that are being addressed, and on our democracy and our overall civic health. And so we hope that you see lots of things on this slide that are important to your work as well, that can be improved on through this work. We think it's important to focus on addressing the barriers to participation. So we've really spent a lot of time looking at research and surveys and studies and reports to pull out some common themes of why youth don't participate. And this is true across all forms of participation, but especially in voting. The first is that they're not asked to participate. You know, we all know from Volunteer Management 101 that the number one reason people volunteer is because someone they know asked them to participate. And it's that personal, meaningful, relevant ask to participate. And unfortunately, most political campaigns do not focus on younger voters and on a lot of the populations that nonprofits serve, because they may not be likely voters in their databases. And so it's really up to us to help make that ask to young people and to all of our constituents around why it's important to vote and participate in our elections. The second is that they're not taught how to participate. Especially for first-time voters. If you've never done this before, it can be kind of intimidating, right? Of figuring out, what the registration rules are and if there are ID requirements and how to go about registering by a certain date, and then how to figure out, what's on your ballot and where candidates stand, and then, how to actually vote, and is it in person? Is it by mail? Is it early voting? Where is the polling place? How do I get there? What are the rules, when I do go and vote? That may seem fairly obvious to those of us who have voted many times, but again, for the first time, unless you're taught what that process looks like, it can be a barrier. The third is that there are just systemic barriers in place and really related to equity and access issues that a lot of people just aren't able to overcome without some help. So thinking, polling place locations and having the time to go vote and transportation to the polls and, lots of these issues that especially among low-income communities and communities of color, that there are in often case barriers put in place by policies that are enacted that we need to help people overcome. And the last is that they're either disconnected, disengaged, don't think it will make a difference. And I think it's important for all of us to share stories and examples and help inspire and to show where this participation really does make a difference. So our ServiceVote work is really trying to help local partners address these barriers to help young people lead efforts to register their peers to vote, to help them do voter education activities, to help get them ready to vote, and then get out the vote activities as well. And you can visit ysa.org/ServiceVote for information about all of that and the resources. And we'll dig into a couple of these areas in the next couple of sessions. So to start us off, before we turn things over to Priestley at When We All Vote, a quick trivia question. So think about your answer of how many people turn 18 each year. And I'll give you a couple of seconds to come up with your answer. Keep it in your head. And the answer is about 4 million people, a little bit over, again, based on how many people were born in each year. But that means, a whole lot of people have become newly eligible to vote since the last election in 2020. And then if you look at any 4-year period between presidential elections, 16 to 20 plus million people turn 18. So making sure that they're all engaged for the first time is incredibly important. And obviously the first step towards their engagement is making sure they're registered to vote. And so with that, I will turn it over to my colleague Priestley Johnson from When We All Vote to talk about their work and how you can participate in it.
Hello, hello. How are you all doing? Thank you for having us for the ServiceVote 2022 Connecting Service and Voting to Increase Youth Civic Participation panel. My name is Priestley Johnson, Director of Strategic Community Partnerships here at When We All Vote. I'm excited to be joining you all. When We All Vote is a nonpartisan voting initiative created by former First Lady Michelle Obama in 2016. At When We All Vote, we are working towards changing the culture around voting and increasing voter participation in each and every election. When We All Vote is a grassroots-led effort to register, organize, and mobilize communities across the nation ahead of the 2022 midterm elections. This effort will focus on communities and spaces at the epicenter of culture and register and galvanize voters to be ready for the upcoming midterm elections. Now let's get into what our current state of play is. Our current state of play is that 99% of all elected positions are at the state and local level. Yes, that is 99%. Our vote is our voice and our power, and it is our power to build our communities and country that we all deserve. So we're going to need to hear from all of you this upcoming midterm election year. This November, voters will elect 435 seats in the House of Representatives, and 34 of the 100 seats of the Senate will be up for vote. 39 state and territorial gubernatorial races will also take place, and numerous other state and local elections will also be contested. State and local elections impact our everyday lives, determining everything from funding for schools and COVID-19 protections, as well as fixing roads and potholes in your neighborhoods, are also up for election. There's a lot at stake this upcoming year. And as we celebrate the historic gains, like the confirmation of the first Black woman to serve on the Supreme Court, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, we also must remain vigilant in the fight to protect and strengthen access to the ballot box for all Americans. The January 6th insurrection, where white supremacists rioted at the Capitol and a violent attack on our democracy, happened just last year. And since historic voter turnout in 2020, state lawmakers across the nation have introduced more than 500, that is 500 voter suppression bills. These bills seek to silence our voices at the ballot box and often have a disproportionate impact on Black, Brown, and Indigenous, as well as young voters and voters with disabilities. From Georgia and Florida to Arizona and Texas, states have passed laws designed to make it harder for millions of Americans to vote. And in dozens of state legislatures across the nation, lawmakers have attempted to do the same. Just in Texas, new voter ID laws have resulted in unprecedented levels of rejected mail-in ballots during last month's primary. In Harris County, the state's most populous county, areas with large Black populations were 44% more likely to have ballots rejected than heavily populated white areas. In 2021, Florida Governor DeSantis signed a dangerous bill that restricts access to voting by mail and drop boxes. Florida legislature has also passed a bill requiring taxpayers to spend more than $1 million a year for an unnecessary election police force that feeds into disinformation about the 2020 election. We also know that in Arizona, Arizona's governor has signed a dangerous bill that calls for proof of U.S. citizenship to vote in the state, putting thousands of registered voters in jeopardy from being purged from the rolls, disproportionately impacting older voters who did not have this requirement last time they registered to vote. And also in Georgia, it's illegal for organizations to hand out snacks or bottles of water for people standing in long lines. While the state battles some of the harshest voter suppression efforts in the nation, thanks to the state's deep organizing efforts, some of the most controversial parts of this year's anti-voting omnibus bill, HB 1464, was killed in legislature. This type of voter suppression is not new. Generations of Americans have persevered through poll taxes, literary tests, and laws designed to strip away voter power. And they've done it by organizing, protesting, and most importantly, holding lawmakers accountable and fighting to overcome the barriers in front of them in order to vote. So here's the opportunity. That is what's at stake. Here's the opportunity, because all is not lost, and there's so much more that we can do all together. We know that this year, by election day, an estimated number of 4 million people will have turned 18 since 2020's general election and will be newly eligible to vote. We also know that half of young people ages 18 to 29 casted their ballot in 2020, a remarkable 11-point increase over voter turnout in 2016. We also know that an increase was seen among every racial group in 2020. We also know a record number of 30 million Black Americans and 32 million Latino Americans will be eligible to vote in 2022. This is hope. We are seeing that this remarkable 11-point increase of youth voter turnout is showing that our young people are asking us to pass the mic. More effective than ever, young people are getting the news. They know what is going on in their society and they want to be a part of it. Our job is to pass the mic to them and to show them and to let them tell us how to get the work done. We are here to see their impact of how they can impact the next generation. This is their time now. So there's many action items that we all can do to make sure that more people are ready and registered to vote, and that we can impact our community. Number one, you can help register voters. Your vote is your power. So join When We All Vote in making sure our communities can make sure their voices are heard at the ballot box. Register people to vote with When We All Vote and make sure that you are using our voter registration portal. Help advocate against the filibuster. If you have thoughts about the filibuster and its reform, you can contact your senators by calling 202-224-3121, and they will respond. They were elected to represent you. And you can always share When We All Vote's filibuster explainer graphics with your community to help others gain a better understanding of the way that our government and its process works. In closing, saving our democracy has never been led by the people in power. It's been led by us, the people, and it starts in our communities. And our voter education efforts will be as grassroots as ever. The truth is, voter suppression efforts thrive when people aren't aware of the small changes occurring in their communities. From local school boards to Secretary of State's races, When We All Vote will help voters understand the important issues and offices on the ballot and how they impact their community, and will work with state and local partners to identify the best ways to help strengthen our democracy and strengthen our democracy in their own community. And lastly, get involved. You can do more, and so can your organization. So if you would like to get in touch with us, please feel free to email us at partners@whenweallvote.org. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to partner with you, and we'd love for you to get involved. Do not let your democracy fade. You are in power, and there's so much more you can do.
Thank you so much for sharing that great information, Priestley. As we transition into the next section, just a quick thought and note that in most elections, the largest political party is actually non-voters, right? The percentage that of people that don't vote are actually more than vote for either of the two major candidates in most races. And so it really is important that we try to get to all of those, the non-voters, and especially the new voters out there, and register, because as we know, when people show up, it really can make a difference. So another quick trivia question for you, of how many elected officials are there in the United States? So I'll again give you a couple of seconds to bring a number to mind and take a guess. And the answer is, and it will probably surprise you, 511,000, over 500,000 elected officials in the country. And 96% of them are local. Your city, your county, your township, your school district, dog catcher, if those are still around. And I share this to really make the point that that outreach to elected officials and engaging them on important local issues, is not just paying attention to the presidential race or for the US Senate or the US House. It really can be focused on these hundreds of thousands of local elected officials, because we know, the day-to-day interactions that people have most often with government and with policies are really local based policies in your city, your counties, your school districts. And those candidates are much more accessible. They're local to you, and can really be a key part of the voter education efforts that you can plan. So with that, I'd like to turn things over to my colleague Penny Wren at Guides.vote, which YSA is hosting this election cycle as part of our ServiceVote work, to produce nonpartisan candidate guides in many different states across the country, to really be a tool and support for work around voter education activities. And so with that, we'll turn it over to Penny.
Hi, my name is Penny Wren. I'm the Communications Director for Guides.vote, and I'm here to tell you all about the site and us as an organization, and how I think that we'd be a great fit for a lot of the work that you're doing for the upcoming midterm elections. And, we know that voter outreach and voter education is paramount to the success of the country, of the electorate. And that's why great organizations and individuals like you have dedicated and committed yourselves and your resources to making sure that voters are aware of where they should vote, as in their locations, their polling stations, how they can vote. That includes, mail-in ballots, and also the rules for voting, what to bring with you when you arrive. And there's a host of information that so many organizations are dedicated to when it comes to the good work of making sure that we all show up to choose the candidates who we believe will best represent our interests. And at Guides.vote, seeing that all of that work is already being done so well and so comprehensively, and resources have been dedicated to it deservingly, we believe that we fit in when the voter goes to the ballot, when they go with that paper in hand. If there is still, is there always printed paper? Neither here nor there. When the voter is there with the ballot in front of them, and they're deciding where to cast their selection, that's where we think we step in. And so we'd love to talk with you about what we do and how we think what we do could help you and what you do. So at Guides.vote, we create, or at least our hallmark content is our candidate guides. And our candidate guides are side-by-side comparisons of the Republican and Democrat candidate in a general election. So let's take a look. When you go to the Guides.vote site, you'll see our lead text here, which is basically saying that we want you to be an informed voter, and we mean know the issues, know the people, and know where the people stand on the issues. And that's again what we hope to deliver in a very concise and also non-controversial, very packaged way. So if you continue logging and scrolling down the homepage, you'll see that you can sign up for updates and join our mailing list. And you'll also see some of our featured guides from 2020. And I'm going to click on one of these just so that you can get a sense of the kind of work we do, since our 2022 guides are rolling and being produced as the primary candidates when there's still primary elections going on. We know a host of primary elections have already been completed, and we are finishing up guides for those states. But you can definitely expect to hear from us with our completed guides in the next couple of months, throughout July and August especially. But let's take a look real quick at our president and former president from the 2020 election. If you click on View Guide here, it'll give you a sense of a digital version of what the guide looks like. It'll give you a sense of what a digital version of what the guide looks like. So a couple things that I'd love to point out are, we, like many of you, are nonpartisan. And we really take that word nonpartisan very seriously, especially in today's political and media climate. We know that there was a time when, when you were working with the media, objectivity was pretty much one of the primary goals that you were striving towards. And as media and the outlets and platforms have evolved, so too has the approach to sharing journalistic information and to sharing political information, especially. And so we understand that so many Americans are receiving their news from with a slant, with an angle, and we don't begrudge anyone that. And we simply want to provide an opportunity to everyone to get a sense of who someone is and what some of the issues are or I will say without slant, to convey to you that our awareness of slant is quite keen, and our editorial process is exceptionally rigorous because we're doing all we can to avoid um, uh, to avoid editorializing, to be honest with you. We think of editorializing in this case as literally cutting words but not cutting meaning, editing for fit but not editing for fact. What we mean and what we're striving for when it comes to nonpartisanship, and really wanting the reader to know that, hey, you can trust that we're not trying to sway your opinion. You can trust that we want to make sure that your opinion, which is your own, is supported by as much information as possible, and that you have as much information as possible to form an opinion if in fact you are unsure about where a candidate stands on the issues, or if in fact you are a voter who really strives to be more discerning. And to be very honest with you, we believe that now is the time for voters to strive to be more discerning, and that might be something that you see too. And so we really hope that, in addition to the outreach that you're doing, you'll let your memberships, let your audiences, let your communities know that there's a little website out here that really strives to be a partner with them as they're getting to know who's running in their state. So obviously, with the midterm elections, there will not be a general countrywide running. That said, our state guides are pretty much broken up the same way. So you'll see the candidates at the top, and you'll see the issues and a breakdown of the issues throughout the guide. The issues are alphabetized. So this starts with the Affordable Care Act, goes to campaign finance. And if we scroll to the bottom here, I hope you didn't get vertigo. The last issue is voting rules, and the penultimate issue is taxes. And also, one of our new features at guides.vote is an issues by issues interactive menu, so that if there is a particular issue that you want to see where a candidate stands, and when you click on the guide, so if I were on the homepage, and I clicked on a guide. And actually, let's go ahead and do the Senate guide, since we are talking about state elections in 2022. And this is the 2021 Senate runoff between Warnock and Loeffler. It's the view of the guide. And if obviously you have the candidates here. Here we go with the smiling photos, two beautiful smiling candidates. You'll see a link to their sites, their campaign information. And speaking of campaign information, one of our goals as well is to create content for evaluating candidates that's not just based on what they're pushing, what they're promoting as campaign messaging. So when you scroll down to issues, if I want to see where the candidates stand on guns, which obviously is an exceptionally timely topic now and seemingly always perennially. So we're skipping down here to guns, enact more restrictive legislation on guns, and we have their two opinions. Often you'll see a yes or no. Often you'll see a verb, and if there is no position to be found, we'll simply say that. And we do not make up the difference for an absence of something either. And we also try our very, very, very best to make sure that there is a mirroring in the verbs. So Even here, you'll see that the tighten or loosen environmental regulations tighten, and here unclear but general anti-regulatory stance wants to look at what we're doing with regard to the economy and the environment collectively. So just so you know. So yeah, if we're going to guns here, you'll see that the Republican candidate, no, strong Second Amendment supporter. All of the facts here are hyperlinked. They're reference links. So if I click on this, then I'll see it goes to an interview or definitely a primary source from a local Georgia newspaper with Senator Loeffler talking about gun control. So that's the really great thing about our guides. So if I'm thinking about where I think we would be a great fit for your work, a couple things come to mind. One, we'd really love to partner with you when it comes to sharing and promoting each other's content. We are right now reaching out to organizations like yours to develop strategic partnerships of content promotion and content sharing. Right, that can look a lot of different ways, and we think of these as we are agreeable to customizing the programs in a lot of different ways. So we could include for our guides, if you're looking at a PDF of the guide, we can brand the top of it. We can include your branding along with our branding, and for that, and with that, you could publish it and upload it to your website.
Thank you, Penny, for sharing those incredible resources to help us all with our voter education initiatives. As we transition into the next section of the presentation, I just want to share another thought that really gets at the importance of connecting the ongoing advocacy efforts that volunteers might be participating in through things like walkouts and getting out the vote. And recognizing that it is not one or the other, that we really have to do ongoing advocacy and voter education on key issues and connect that to actually getting out the vote. So as we think about the third and final piece of where youth can really lead efforts around election engagement after they help get people registered to vote and help educate voters, is obviously the final step of actually getting out and voting. And volunteers can obviously play a very key role in mobilizing voters, reminding them in the days leading up to the election day, and then actually helping them get to the polls. Again, we know that there are a lot of issues and barriers around transportation issues or knowing where polling locations are and that kind of thing that volunteers can really do a lot to help address. In addition, volunteers can actually help elections run. So thinking about serving as poll workers and election monitors to help people if they're having issues, to call the voter election protection hotline and make sure that that issues get addressed. Volunteers can really be helpful in those areas as well. And then, of course, election day does not end civic engagement. We are focused on advocating for those issues that volunteers are caring about and that your organizations are focused on. Obviously, while candidates are running and reaching out to candidates and challenging them, during debates and community events and forums and other voter engagement activities. To really challenge candidates to take a stance on these issues and to have policy ideas to solve these in the long term. And then, of course, once they are elected, that advocacy work continues to actually put those policies in place that we know will address the root causes of the issues that our volunteers are working on and they care about. In thinking about how volunteers address issues, YSA uses an ASAP model, standing for both as soon as possible and for awareness, service, advocacy, and philanthropy. And we really see election seasons as unique opportunities for awareness raising, those public education activities around issues, and those advocacy efforts to really take a step up in times that maybe are not always as relevant. And so that election season, when you can do that public education work through the voter education and advocacy by reaching out to candidates while they're running for office, can be key activities that then can continue the rest of the years ahead when people are actually in office that have been elected. We also see election times as an opportunity to challenge candidates to commit to bringing youth to the decision-making tables if they are elected. And the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the National League of Cities, statewide youth councils and children's cabinets work done through the Forum for Youth Investment. These groups have all done work on this at the local level. And so we encourage you to check them out and to really have one of the things that you're asking candidates about when you're out engaging with them is how youth will have a seat at the table if they are elected. Also want to point out some resources from the Teaching for Democracy Alliance, which is a program of our colleagues over at Circle for how to integrate this into school systems and make sure that this election, teaching about elections and engaging students in elections is a key part of school plans. Thinking about when to actually do these activities, obviously any day leading up to the election is a great day to do any of this work. But we really look at the post-Labor Day election season as kind of the typical traditional campaign season, and really kicking that off with 9/11 Day of Service. National days of service like 9/11 Day and MLK Day and Global Youth Service Day are obviously great times for the traditional service projects, but can also be really great opportunities to do this voter registration and voter education work. And I always like to share remind people that 9/11/2001 was actually primary election day in New York City. And so there's a thematic connection to elections and obviously the larger issues of protecting our democracy and continuing our democracy and working for the future of our democracy that are really important themes for engaging people on 9/11 Day. And then throughout September and October, there are several other civic holidays. High School Voter Registration Week in September, which is connected to National Voter Registration Day to focus on the voter registration piece. For Voter Education Week in October to really help educate voters and to use resources like the guides.vote candidate guides. And then getting into some get out the vote efforts, starting with Vote Early Day in late October, a couple of weeks before the election, which is really the kickoff to that final push to get people out to vote early and then on election day. So as we all head into this work, I'd like to close with some reflections from a group of young people that we worked with during the 2020 elections. We supported a group of ServiceVote fellows, and they shared some of their reflections with us after the election. And I'd like to share a compilation of those with you now. So just give me a second to pull up this video. And here we go.
Now that this monumental election is over, I want to thank everybody who went out and voted. It was a pretty historic election, if I do say so myself. And being a YSA ServiceVote fellow allowed me to connect with my community on a whole different level.
When I first started the program, I knew that I had to get out of my comfort zone. And one thing that helped me to do that was meeting the amazing fellows that were in the program. They were all so welcoming and passionate about what they were doing, about voting.
And it was just great discussing with other peers who had the same goals as me, how they were doing it, and becoming more effective by implementing our strategies all across the country, because that's what it really takes in order for us to have a democracy, for everyone to participate, and for everyone's voice to be heard through their vote.
This experience brought me so many opportunities to get the vote out, from talking to my peers about how the election actually affects us, to being on a radio show. I really got to do it all.
You know, I think there's kind of a misconception that young people are politically apathetic, and I think in a lot of cases they're just not invited to the table or not given the resources that they need in order to be engaged.
My generation is constantly asked why we're so political, why we're always angry about some issue or another, but they forget that from the time that we are 4 years old, they're more willing to teach us how to hide under desks from active school shooters than they're willing to pass sensible gun violence prevention policies.
And what we've seen is that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, there have been an array of inequities that have been exposed. Young people across the country are making their voice heard and demanding change. And now more than ever, we need young people participating in our electoral system, casting their vote, making sure that people in policies who represent their ideals and values are in office. And every single vote counts.
We're going to organize and we're going to mobilize and we are going to turn out the vote.
Well, I use the resources YSA gave me in partnering with my district to do a voter registration drive.
I've had the opportunity to work with community organizations such as the League of Women Voters here in Columbus, Ohio, and others to register voters and get out the vote and empower voters to cast their ballots.
So as a fellow, I had the opportunity to work with local organizations to conduct digital texting campaigns to reach out to young people across the Phoenix area to remind them about our elections and the importance of voting. My goal was to try and get as many young people as I could enrolled in our permanent early voting program so that they get their ballot every single year.
We phone banked, we text banked, we poll worked, we vote tripled, we passed out multilingual pamphlets, and we brought the nation to victory. We defended democracy, and it's because of young people, and it's because of Black, Indigenous people of color, and it's because of these grassroots organizations.
I was able to promote voter education and voter engagement, especially for my minority population, and just allowing people to understand that at one point our ancestors fought for this, so here I am.
Using my voice and my social media platforms to educate people on the importance of voting and registering to vote has been my privilege. I am very thankful and extremely proud to say I know I made an impact on my generation and generations to come.
That what I've also learned is that I'm not just making a difference this year, but as these voters continue to be politically engaged and continue to vote, then I have laid the foundation to be able to make a difference in future elections and in future political decisions.
We all have a role to play this year and every year in making sure that every single person, especially young people, are going to the polls to vote.
Just knowing that an organization as big as YSA, really believed in me and believed in my abilities and my vision to create change, it really meant a lot. And it really reaffirmed my beliefs that as a teen, I'm still able to, make a change in the world that I want to see.
And it was a great experience that helped me turn my aspiration of turning out the youth vote and historic numbers into a reality. So we went from aspiration into a reality throughout this fellowship.
Some powerful reflections and some powerful thoughts as from young people who did this work so successfully 2 years ago. And we hope to inspire you to engage many more like them this election cycle. As we close out, I wanted to share one final opportunity from Youth Service America. We do have ServiceVote Fellow grants available to support young people like the fellows you just heard from. And there'll be $1,000, $2,000, or $3,000 grants for organizations to support young leaders they're working with. We did a round of applications earlier this year. They will reopen in early August. And if you sign up at ysa.org/servicevote or sign up for YSA's Youth Service Briefing on our website, we'll notify you when those grants become available. And we'll also use the community functionality on this platform to share that update with you all as well. So we encourage you that if you are doing this work, consider applying for one of those grants when they're open again in August. So with that, I want to thank you all for spending this time today and for the work that you're all doing to protect our democracy and to increase youth civic participation. Here's to another successful election season with increased participation for young people and for all voters. It has never been more important.